Trollord Games. Join the fray.
Welcome to GM's Tricks of the Trade. I think today's topic is rage. I don't know what that means. Angry GMs. I know I was angry earlier, so that's what led to the title. But there you go. No real particular topic today. I think we're just going to open it up. Chuck, I assume that we are live and have sound. I can see the video, so that's good. But I can hear nada. So there you go. All right, what's going on? Chuck, you out there? Anybody? Tim? Chuck? Anybody? Let's refresh that guy there. Well, with no topic and no one to talk to, it's going to be a quiet chat. There we go. How's it going, Obsidian Risk? Everything seems to be moving at a glacial pace these days. I'm not sure. How's it going, Jay? How's it going, Eat to Surf? I don't know what's going on with the crew. I think, how's it going, Sparky? So we got, she did, Jay, and I forgot to respond to her, and I'll holler at her. I believe I'm going to join you guys that night, and we'll definitely give prize support without a doubt. So yeah, whatever you guys need, we're there for you. So definitely, I haven't cleared it with the boss, my wife, but she works most nights too, so it'll all pan out. She just texted me a few minutes ago and said, "Oh, I got a meeting tonight at 6:30." So I got to tell you, this modern world is an interesting thing, especially as we post COVID shift into this non-traditional workspaces, the whole working from home, whatever the stuff. It's exactly right. It never slows down. I think that I don't know that this is the case because I wasn't alive in the 1950s or whenever, but it feels like you could come home from work and you were done with work. You just got to do non-stuff, but working out of the home is a little different. You're always on, and I guess that's good. Because you can always take off. You can wander away in the middle of the day and go. You still got the rest of the day, the rest of the night to do whatever. So it's an interesting I don't know, meshing of Leave It to Beaver World. Yeah, it's an interesting mesh of for those of us who are a little bit older who grew up in a different time, or at least with the echoes of a different time around us, to today when the world never stops, it's constantly moving. And of course, as the globe gets smaller and you can communicate with someone, in Europe or whatever, Vietnam, wherever you want, immediately then time begins to, the time as we traditionally know it begins to kind of disintegrate. It doesn't have as much meaning. It should be interesting how it impacts sleep patterns and eating patterns and all of that mess. Just as long as it doesn't impact the Dr. Pepper drinking pattern, then I'm golden. How's it going, Epi? Glad you could join us. I wonder how the inability to leave work at the end of the day will affect stress levels, mental health. I think it's going to have an impact. I think, it's a two-way street because as everyone on the planet knows that if you've got to do something in the day, say have your cable hooked up or talk to the electric company or whatever, someone's got to be on deck to do that, and you can't often do it from work, and someone's got to be at home or whatever. So working from home gives you an out there. You don't have to worry about arranging all of that mess. But on the other hand, you never put anything down, and you keep working after hours. I damn well know I do. I work all the time. Now I love working, so I don't mind it myself. But I love how coming home from work and being done, not the sword at work hangs above my computer anytime I'm here. Yeah, that's the thing I think that certainly me and a lot of us, but even my wife's, because she's got a traditional 9 to 5, spills over late because she owns her own business. But even it has spilled into the evenings with Zoom meetings and all this other stuff. So it's just interesting to watch how this whole thing changes, and there's no stopping it. There's no amount of, we're not going to shift back to Wally and the Beaver, hanging out and doing Wally and the Beaver things. I got to tell you though, we're watching The Great. It's called The Great. It's about Catherine the Great. It's on Hulu. It's a good show. And there's a lot of swearing in it, and a lot of tension in it, and a lot of borderline pornography in it. They don't quite go into the porn zone, but they're in the end zone with the porn. And so there's all of that. But I wonder how that also impacts the way we see the world around us and our mental health, whatever it is, compared to watching something like Wally and the Beaver, where, man, those shows are pretty calm. I don't know if you ever watched them or if you grew up with them, but they're pretty calm. There's no craziness in them. My girlfriend is a psych nurse at the hospital. Luckily, she can be forced to take her patients. Yeah, you can't be forced. That's good. That's a very good shot. Thanks for the subscription, Long Shot. Very much appreciated. Eat to Surf, thanks again for the subscription. King Kothar, glad you could join us today. I'm required to wear my headset at all times. With my real job and streaming 3.5 times a week plus prep, it's a lot. It's a lot. I mean, it's a huge amount. What in the hell? Oh, hey, baby. It's the old woman.
She's whining like crazy.
Yeah, she wants down here. That one was the old woman. She's about 15, doesn't get around so much anymore. You were a little hard on the Beaver last night. There you go. No, but it'll never regress. I just turned 36 and I'm hitting that age where I can see how the world has changed between when I was a kid versus now. It's crazy. Yeah, it really is. And, I just had the echo of that 1950s. I was born in 67, so it was still, the vestiges of that was everywhere. And now, of course, it's part of the movies and part of entertainment. But, I don't know, very interesting. Conan in 1980 was hyper-violent to me in the day. Now, that's true. Manager Dave, the difference, I think, is Conan was an R-rated movie at the movie theater, and this stuff is just on TV. If you have a 7-year-old child, they could go in and watch. Maybe Hulu's got parental controls, I don't know, but they could go in and watch all this stuff. And I'm not complaining about the violence and the dance with porn or any of all of that stuff, but it's always there. If you watch TV back in the 70s, and of course this probably isn't the case. Hill Street Blues came out in the 80s. When TV was less stressful, because TV's kind of stressful these days. It's interesting, and I shouldn't say stressful. That's not the right word. It gets you on the edge, I suppose, and I love that personally for a viewer. That's really the only type of television I like. That's why I'm enjoying Catherine the Great. But I know I'm watching Narcos as well, and Narcos has that same kind of murdering, rampaging and drugs and all of this mess. And occasionally I think, I'm just going to watch My Name is Earl and just watch Earl wander around, trying to fix some past wrong that he committed. So it's just an interesting. The world is very interesting to me. I'm sure it's whatever direction it is the direction it will continue to go, but I'm not convinced that it's all good. Probably a balance somewhere in there for something. Conan the Barbarian, man, the movie in the early mid-70s were so violent. They were extremely violent, but they were at the movies. Yeah. But I think some persons thrive on it. Some people do, and I do. I like to work. I love to work in the evenings. I love to work all the time. I don't mind it. I get irritated when my day gets derailed by crap that it shouldn't be derailed by, like having today. But it is an interesting thing the way it's all kind of merged into one. And maybe it's nothing new. I mean, let's think about it. In the colonial period, in the 1700s or 1800s or whatever, you had to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and take care of your livestock. If something went wrong at night, there's wolves out there, you had to get up in the middle of the night and go outside. So maybe the 40s and the late 40s, 50s, and 60s was this very narrow period where people weren't working all the time, which is fine. I actually think working is extremely healthy for people. I think it's just a good thing to do. But it's just interesting watching the whole world kind of spin. I think it's funny how they sold toys for R-rated movies in the 80s. Yep. Rollerball in 76 or 75 or whatever it was R for the violence. Rollerball was violent. I honestly can't rest. If I'm here, I have to leave the house. If I'm here, I end up working. I work in tons of hours because I want to and enjoy it. Yeah, that's kind of how I am. But I can work for me is relaxing. So agreed. But even in a short span, the difference between the 80s, early 90s, and now, it's mind-boggling. It's hugely boggling. Let's see. Parks and Rec is my retreat for normal fare. I love Parks and Rec. That and what's the 30 Rock's a good one too. But 9/11 was an event that brought about massive shifts in many different aspects of life. It did, but I really think it's the internet, to be honest with you. And COVID is an accelerant. We were already watching people move to a work from home environment, but in tiny numbers, tiny numbers, as employers have to become very comfortable with their employees not being managed, time managed. And you really have to kind of look at it as how much their productivity is. Are they producing a lot or are they not producing a lot? It's not so much a time clock thing anymore. And I think COVID, the pandemic, accelerated that because suddenly people had to work from home. So suddenly employers had to figure out a way, or at least come to terms with, they are at least now coming to terms with people working from home. So it's an interesting, gigantic social cultural shift going on now, and it's really probably shifting back to a way it was previously when you had families at home when we were mostly rural farming and whatnot. I remember my younger brother and getting a Rambo action figure. Oh yeah, it seemed like the 70s movies were violent for the violent's sake, as in the violence was the selling point. I think you could carry that on into the 80s, Omut, because there's all of the Arnold Schwarzenegger movies are just Commando. Come on, what's going on with that movie? I love it, but come on, what's going on? But I don't know. Maybe that might transcend decades because violence sells, sex sells. People like me. I mean, I love violent TV shows. I love violent movies and all of that stuff. So yeah, I don't know. Although Rambo 4 was super. Rambo 4 was like violence on crack. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but there's a scene where one of his opponents is driving a Jeep or parked a Jeep, whatever, and there's a 50 cal mounted behind the driver, and he turns the 50 cal on the driver and shoots the driver with like 20 rounds of a 50 cal in the back of the dude's head. Yeah, Rambo was on crack. Well, they just lived with duck and cover drills thinking they were going to get nuked. There is that. You are 100% correct there. We did that a little bit when I was a kid, but it was mostly tornadoes. But my mother actually remembers doing that because nuclear war was a real threat and fear then. I think I remember an article that came out about the deer hunter talking about how many F-bombs were in it. The shock factor has moved dramatically. Oh yeah, if you watch The Great, it is absolutely filled with. I would say every 10 words is the F word. It's really funny. And it doesn't bother me. It's just an interesting level of tension that is now everywhere. You didn't find that stuff in the 50s. You did not go home at your television set and turn it on and watch Rambo shoot some dude in the back of the head with a 50 caliber machine gun. You just didn't. You watched Leave It to Beaver, My Three Dads. I don't know, the Honeymooners. I guess that's a little older, but it was TV was far more censored by the whoever whoever does that mess. I'm late to have the trick started, or are we still talking moves? Rhino, I got no tricks today. My day was completely derailed by a variety of incidences that carried me on up to 3:50. I almost had to cancel the stream, so I got no GM and tricks tips to today. That's why it says rage. I was so angry earlier. It knocked me off my rocker. I worked at a Toy Story Children's Palace. We had some mothers group to come in and buy all the Rambo toys and put out front staff and then put our front end staff through the pain of returning them. Oh, good God. There's always lurid content, and there will always be a market for it. Look at the covers for the old pulp magazines. Yeah, absolutely. But what I'm talking about is television. I'm specifically talking about television in the 1950s. There was not lurid content on the television in the 1950s. By the late 60s, it begins to break up a little bit. You start seeing TV shows that have it. But in the 1950s, television was was calm. If you've ever watched Leave It to Beaver, just go watch an episode of it. If you have not, it's calm. It's whether it's interesting or not is entirely a different concept, but I'm specifically talking about television. Alvin Toffler wrote The Third Wave about this kind of shit. He wrote it in the early 80s. Yeah, I've heard something about the turning. Is that the fourth turning or the third turning or some crap? Stuff drives me absolutely nuts. Remember buying D&D books at Children's Palace. I remember buying them at Sears for sure. I wonder if companies will see higher or lower productivity from working at home. Yeah, I think higher, honestly. I think that I honestly think that I think the way the human mind is structured for the majority of people completing a task is important, and they want to check it off. Whether it's making your bed or finishing your what are the reports in the office space, the TPP reports or whatever it is. I think productivity will go up. I think it's going to be a massive change in the way we think and the way we interact for that to happen, and especially for employers to come to terms with how they can gauge the productivity of an employee. It's very interesting. Bought many D&D books at KB Toys, etc. Yep, that was the good times. KB's, a novel from the 1890s or 1900s called Looking Backwards. Edward Bellamy wrote Looking Backwards. I remember that book. Predicted this kind of workforce as well. Yep. He also had, if I remember, vacuum tubes. You could order stuff from the grocery store and a vacuum tube would send it to your house. It's a good book. Same here, $1 modules. I actually got the TSR display rack for my Children's Palace in my game room. That's very cool. Yeah, I miss them. This is blah, blah. The F word is a great word. Leave It to Beaver would have been so much better with the F word. Would have been awesome. With Beaver just constantly dropping the F-bomb. Especially the young Beaver. That would have been cool. What time ad got their ad demographics right here. Yeah, no kidding. Rage. All this overconsumption and overproduction is what is destroying the planet. And really, what is the point? We need to completely rejig the way economies and GDP functions to save the planet. Everything else is just a talk fest. I think the whole internet, time dure away. I think the entire internet is a talk fest. And I can't remember how much energy. I read this. So I'm not a fan of Google. I don't use Google. I don't allow any of TLG's property to go on Google. I dislike the company very much. I won't go into any reasons why. I just dislike the company. But somewhere I read that the amount of energy required to power Google's servers or whatever the bloody hell they're doing is through the roof, astronomical, and they're having to move it off coast just to make it even affordable, which is interesting. And what was it I heard the other day that, now I don't know, and I don't follow any of the global warming stuff, so I can't speak to any of it, but I read an article where 3% of global warming or climate change, whatever they're calling it now, was caused by emails, undeleted emails in people's email accounts. And I swear to God, it was not from a site like The Onion or Babblebee or whatever the hell that stuff is. It was a series. I don't know if any of that's true, but it made me think, man, I should go delete some emails, which I promptly just selected all and deleted them all. I told an older coworker, "You grew up with the Beaver. I grew up with Jason and Freddie." There you go. There's your difference right there. To me, real life throughout history has been much more violent than our entertainment today. That is for certain sure. Absolutely. And you couldn't even guarantee that you could go home and not have to work and not get, attacked by some crazed, whatever, Magyar coming up from Hungary. I know those days, Steve, those are extra Dr. Pepper days, exactly. I might have to go watch Dog Day Afternoon to bring back the 70s style of movie. That's a good movie. That's Al Pacino. And I grew up watching reruns of Leave It to Beaver. I did too. I Love Lucy, The Honeymooners. It was a very sanitized. It's very sanitized. It's very sanitized. On the other hand, if you watch something like at Catherine the Great, how many people sit around their dinner table with their children, their 7 and 8-year-old children's dropping the F-bomb and talking about, cocksucking and all this other stuff? It's probably not many. There's probably some. But on the other hand, I think you can go too far. Both extremes are always a little bit too far. Well, we also don't know there are euphemisms in early TV days. Well, I'm guarantee you there was some of that. The TPS reports, yeah. Yeah, everyone was trashed on 5 p.m. days in the 50s. Everyone was checked out anyways. What is that show that has spoiled everyone on what the 50s is like? What is that damn show? I never watched it. It's pretty good. I just never got into it. Sorry I was late to the stream. It must have felt like 1,000 years. Absolutely, tabletop. How long before we get an R-rated Leave It to Beaver remake? Let's do it, man. We got to do an R-rated Leave It to Beaver. There probably is already. Someone go to whatever search engine you use. I almost said Google. It's a nightmare. And type in R-rated Leave It to Beaver. I will guarantee you there is an R-rated Leave It to Beaver on there. It's my dad's fault. The 500 emails he forwards me a day that just sit there, thousands of them. Yeah, I don't know if that shit's true or not. That's just really funny. No wonder you haven't responded to my emails. No, now we know. Oh yeah, about every 6 months I just select all and delete. There's too many of them. I just can't deal with it. It's just too much. Select all, delete. It drives Tim crazy. I just can't. On a serious note, how much of you think portrayal of females in RPGs has changed and you have had to adjust at TLG from a bikini-clad damsel wrapped around Conan's ankle to respected protagonist front and center? Absolutely, we've had to do that, and absolutely it's great. So that's a very cool question. And I've watched, when I joined this maelstrom back in 1999, 2000 is when we first debuted at Gen Con. There weren't many women at Gen Con. I'm just throwing a number out there. I would guess about 10%. And even a percentage of those were just there because their husband or boyfriend or whoever, was into the hobby. And they were just there, hanging out with them. But that has changed so dramatically in the past 2 decades. And it's not been, it's been this gradual shift as more and more women are gaming online with video games. And then, of course, I think the COVID was another accelerant. So many people had to stay at home and find something to do. They started playing role-playing games, and women discovered this whole new field. A lot of younger women discovered the whole new field where they could do just like we've been doing. You could role-play and have fun. So we definitely have, and some of the artists I've had to drag into the modern demographics, kicking and screaming, because if you look at some of our earlier stuff, it is suggestive. There's obviously a marketing appeal to some of the way we did things. Now that said, I tried to always stem from that. You won't find very many bikini-clad chicks on our covers. A couple here and there, but I tried to steer away from that because I never really felt it. I didn't feel it did the hobby justice. Unless the character being portrayed required it. Just like Conan, I wouldn't want to see Conan in plate mail. I wouldn't want to see a barbarian woman, in plate mail either. So it kind of depends on the way on what you're trying to portray now. But I think it's really cool. And the Player's Handbook that we're just releasing now, we're going to release it on the 6th of December, has a ton of that in there. I told all the artists, I don't want any more of this sexually suggestive anything anywhere. If you send it, I'm just dropping it and tossing it out. And all of it is now just battle-honed pictures, of adventurers, which I personally think is great. I think it's a great thing. You can delete emails. Who knew? Time to put $1 in the swear jar. Yeah, Mad Men. That's the one. Should we Google other search engines to use? Yeah, use Bing actually. So I read the other day that Google, with its YouTube, controls 94. I read way too much. 94% of the internet or whatever the search functions. Bing is the alternative, and in the Russian, there's a Russian one, Zampka or something, that is also an alternative, because all the others either use Google's search engine or Bing's or this Russian things, and I personally use DuckDuckGo, but it uses Bing as its whatever, so I do everything I can to avoid Google. So yes, eat to surf, use Bing. Lately I've been watching episodes of Barney Miller when it comes on at 8 p.m. I remember that was a great show. That was a really good show. That was a very low-key cop show too. There wasn't much, there was drama in it, but it wasn't, keeping you on edge. Energy usage is fine as long as it is from renewable resources such as hydro or solar. If you can make those energy uses, effective, then absolutely. But I think I'm a big nuclear fan. I think solar's got a lot of problems and hydro's got a lot of problems, but nuclear we've got a nuclear reactor here in Arkansas. We've had it since 1981. Supplies the majority of the state's energy, and we've got no problems. And we got tornadoes every 15 minutes. We got a tornado rolling through this place. If they don't have to wear bikini armor, does that mean we barbarians can get rid of the old loincloth armor? No, Tarzan must be in a loincloth or naked. Tarzan's mostly naked in the first part of his life. Well, my emails are just me sending you thirst trap videos of me on TikTok, so I don't blame you for deleting them. There you go. How's it going, Grape Ape? Coal and fossil fuels are the issue. Tries looking for it on Lycos. Stop talking about Grape Ape. He's here. I managed to get my wife to play Tunnels and Trolls. Oh, now that's a cool game. I hadn't played that in forever. At my store, the first significant draw of women girls to RPGs was Vampire the Masquerade. I don't doubt that at all. That really had that appeal. I remember when Vampire exploded on the scene. It was really cool. Who was that? White Wolf Publishing, right? Thanks, Pandemic. Conan and Red Sonja, great duo. Absolutely, that sad no more pics of Chuck on the covers. We got the original Beaver back. He's in his 70s. He's a drunk. He rants and raves about his previous adventures and insists he's cute and childlike. It slowly progresses into a horror thriller where Beaver stalks women and kidnaps them, forcing them to watch all of his old episodes, which he taped on VHS. The nightmare of nightmares. Or maybe everyone would be relaxed. I don't know. With a daughter wanting to play, I got to think about portrayal. When did we get old and have to adult up? Yeah, absolutely. The cleric. Yeah, I've got my one of the guys Chris, who sits at my table every week. He's got his wife and 2 daughters play now, and he plays Castles and Crusades, and he's looking forward to the new Player's Handbook because it portrays there's no sexualized women in it, whatever, and all of that's gone. So this is a good thing. I don't know if Ask Jeeves is still a thing. What do we think of a bard concept who is an entertainer, interpretive dance in Mercedes? Name only if you do the dancing, tabletop. If you do the dancing, then I'm all in. All right, so we're doing a raffle, blah, blah, blah. Raffles and Dr. Pepper. There you go. Speaking of Dr. Pepper, it's about time. I play tested for White Wolf here for Werewolf the Apocalypse. I've done tons of DTM and OW. That's very cool, Lando. I remember that stuff was huge. The saddest story I have about Vampire the Masquerade. So there was a live action Vampire the Masquerade, and I was at Dragon Con 1,000 years ago. And I didn't really know how the live play worked out. I knew that if you saw someone like this, they were invisible and you couldn't see them for the game. And then when 2 vampires fought one another, they did at Dragon Con. I don't know if this is normal, but they did the rock, paper, scissors. So I saw this. This couple of vampires. I think I've told this story before, but this couple of vampires fighting, and one had a costume that he probably spent $1,000 on. It was so much money. It was beautiful. He looked cool. He looked like Lestat from wherever the heck, whatever. Interview with a Vampire, and the other guy was in jeans and a t-shirt, and the guy with jeans and a t-shirt won. And I remember turning to Mark saying, "Dude, that's a horrible. This guy is as bad at it. He should have given a point for costumes or something. I don't know, because he spent all that money and then he gets killed in a game of rock, paper, scissors. It was just sad." Steve, let's see. Hey, Steve, not to change the subject, but have you all figured out the issue with the new M&T spine not being glued? We have discovered it's about 1 in every 15 or so of those books. And they just weren't, that was a rebind, and they just weren't bound. Whatever operator was on deck didn't pay close enough attention. So if you have one, just give us a shout at productsupport@troller.com, and we'll get your replacement out. So we got plenty in the run that are perfect, that are good to go. This happened. We've had 3 books now rebound with them, and all of the rebounds we've had about 10 to 15% loss on it. It's very interesting. I'm not really sure because the rebind really isn't anything other than, so I'm not sure what goes into it. It's the same process as binding, but clearly there's something as a give. So if you got one, definitely shout at us. The cover from RPG was done by the fellow who did the cover for Werewolf the Apocalypse. Oh, very cool. That's very, very cool. So that's my wife, walks around with her arms crossed all the time. Yeah. But it's probably more like this there, Chuck, as opposed to that. It was interesting. It was just sad that poor vampire died so fast. And for those of you who are showing up for GM's Tricks of the Trade, I got no Tricks of the Trade. I had a very disruptive day, so I didn't get to the topics put together. I almost had to cancel the show, but decided not to cancel the show, so now we're just jabbering. We're just jabbering about stuff. Yeah, we've shipped over half at this point, have rolled out. So if you're in the Kickstarter, we'll get a huge chunk out tomorrow, and then another chunk on Monday. And of course, for those of you who didn't back the Kickstarter, the Player's Handbook will go on sale on December 6th. I've got a copy here. I'm so excited. Can you see that? I am so excited about this. And speaking of realistically portrayed women, there you go. I'm just so excited about this Player's Handbook. It's the layout is. There are no tricks today. Good night. The layout is new and fresh, and everything's going to be easy to get a hold of. Going to be able to access information very easily, so I'm super stoked about that. It's got the low level and the high level merged together into the same book. Previously, we had them split between the Player's Handbook and the CKG, so I'm jazzed on that as well. It's just, and then of course all the new art. I think we kept 1 or 2 pictures from the old stuff. All the art is new, and it's in each section, class, and race. There's a female and male presented in both ones. So if you're playing a female, then you got this picture, and if you're playing male, you got this picture. It's all good. I'm super stoked on it. Like I said, it should go on sale on Monday. Okay, let's talk about using supplements like spell cards, etc. in play. We can do that. I'm trying. I never use those cards. It's so funny, except the Adventurers backpack cards we did. Cards drive me nuts. I'm trying to think of RPG-related questions. I'm fairly empty on them, but my playthrough of A0 is going well. Almost resulted in a TPK when the wolf spider paralyzed most of the party. Those are dangerous ghouls. I always do it to my parties. When 2 players had to play out 2 days hiding in the dungeon while the party recovered. God, the postage and delay post to Oz keeps me on PDFs, enjoying reading it to see how system works, looking for excuses to play CK it. Very cool. Atharnic, I think there's still some. It's way too expensive for me to recommend it, but I think it's next day air express to Australia. We can get it to you, but it's like, man, is it expensive. It gets there in 3 days, flies, it goes in by plane, but it's just too expensive. It's like $100 or some crazy shit like that. What are your tips and tricks for converting to CNC from various D20 games? So the biggest thing about CNC, everything converts so easily, except, well, all of it does. Every bit of it does. The only thing you're going to have trouble with is with Advanced Dungeons & Dragons when you do the armor classes, because we do the Ascending Armor class, and AD&D does the Descending Armor class. So if you're switching from any other version, everything else is going to be so very familiar, you're going to have no problem shifting in. The hardest thing you're going to have to do is to master the Siege Engine, and that is bone-numbingly easy to master. You're going to read it a couple of times. It's going to sound a little odd, and then you're going to play it. And after you've done maybe 1 or 2 sessions, 3-4 hour sessions, you're going to have mastered the Siege Engine with no problem, because it's really how you resolve things at the table. And that's the joy of Castles and Crusades, is that the rules are so very, very easy and so very versatile. Once you've mastered it, you're going to realize that there's no end game for this. You can use the Siege Engine for anything, and that's the nice thing about we've dispensed with all the other skills and the feats and all of that stuff is not part of Castles and Crusades. You can weave it in if you want. We have some in the CKG, and you can even take stuff over from other editions if you want. But when you're running the game, it's extremely easy to and now here's the 2 hardest things, is to kind of get your mindset around anything goes, and the players have to do the same. A lot of players we found from 3rd edition, and I'm sure 5th edition has this issue as well, is they come over wanting to know they won't do things because they'll ask the question all the time, can I do? You can try anything. All you have to do is say, I try to swim the river. I try to climb the rope. I try to convince the bartender to give me more, food, whatever it is. I think that it takes a few, and once you've done that, once you've kind of shifted that for you and your players, then you're off. You're off to running. And let's see, what about the acrylic spell templates I saw in a few recent Kickstarters? So those are going to be shipping separately. Those are coming from Axe and Shield. Those things are very, very, very cool. Those I actually like because it gives you area of effect and stuff like that at the table. I'm not a huge fan of the spell cards, the monster cards, and primarily because I can't, once you've used them, once they're out of order, it's almost impossible to keep using them quickly. It's much easier for me just to open up a book, go to Orc, read the Orc's armor class, and move on, as opposed to strum through a bunch of cards trying to find the Orc, figure out what his armor class is, especially if you've got 300 cards or something like that. We've long since had a product that we wanted to make that easier, but I haven't been able to find a way to do it. Had a couple of good leads, but nothing yet. And I've actually kind of dropped it, where you could use the cards, place it down in front of your players and your player character sheet, and make it a little bit easier. But that's my biggest problem with almost any of that stuff. The acrylics, the stuff you're talking about, the spell effect area is a little different. You can put that on the table. This is how much your whatever. I can't think of a spell. Fireball. Your fireball effects. Let's see. What are your tips and tricks for blah, 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 besides the DM screen? What are some CNC supplemental products? There are so many of them. There's engineering dungeons. There's engineering castles. There's arms and armor. There's guilds and orders. Adthurp's miscellaneous. What is it? Adthurp's something or the other. I can't remember what that is about. Herbs and healing ointments, stuff like that. Then we've got about 50 or so adventures. And then there's the Mythos series, which is the Codex Celtarum, Codex Germania, Codex Nordica, Codex Slavorum, Codex Classicum, Codex Egyptium. Then there's Gods and Legends, the Adventurer's Backpack. There's Castles and Crusades is one of probably the top 5 supported role-playing games on the market today. I would say D&D, Savage Worlds. That's about it. GURPS, maybe. I don't know. There's probably a few other I'm missing. I use my custom-made boon cards for CNC. Those are cool. Let's see. Is there any community content on drive-through? Do y'all know? I don't think... There's a little bit. There's a little bit out there. What about the acrylic spell template? Okay, I answer that. I use Grid Combat most of the time, so those were cool. Yeah, I really like them. Those should be shipping very soon, Omut. I know your package shipped today, too, so you got a bunch of players' handbooks coming your way. Hope it's been... How's it going, Tanlil? Hope you're having a good day, too. Did you say there was a GMT on Monday with Davis? What time? There's not a GMTT on Monday. We're just gathering to talk on the 6th of December. We're doing a watch party for the release of the Castles and Crusades Player's Handbook. We're trying to have Davis come in and come online. Let's see. Tim was getting internet hooked up today. Okay. We got fiber optics. I didn't. Tim did. Up where he is. Up in his neck of the woods. They finally got fiber optics. So he should be able to start doing more internet stuff. I'll say this about Siege. We've been playing CNC for the last few weeks, but Tuesday night we pivoted back to our white box SW game, Sword and Wizardry game, and it really hit me how much smoother CNC plays and how much easier it is to get things done with Siege. It really is. And it takes time to actually get your head into that. It took me, I don't know, probably a good 6 games before I finally said, okay, this is I can work with this because I can do anything, because I do a lot of from the hip gaming. I usually make something out of a 3x5 card. CNC is ostensibly a skill-based, a skillless D20 system without a pre-selected menu of options for porting 3.x D&D products. Monsters port fairly directly as far as AC, hit point, HD, and attacks. Just know that fort, will, and reference saves are subdued with mental and physical saves. That's about it. The latest Arms and Armor book is from a few years ago with all of Peter's art in it. So great. Yep, I love that book, and Davis is bad wanting to expand it into a full-blown 150-page book, so we're tanked on that as well. So you have enough fun products to make some amazing TikToks for months. Yeah, I gotta figure out how to do the TikTok thing. I don't know if I should just do my normal holding the book up. We can talk about it later. I don't have time to spend 2 or 3 hours making TikTok videos. I just don't. Maybe next quarter as things lighten up, but we're still wrestling with the NPC Almanac, and I got to get into both of those books. We turned that one book into 2, and I gotta iron all that shit out. It's done, but let's see. A lot of charts on Discord about wanting to use CNC. A lot of chats on Discord about wanting to use CNC, and on VTTs, given 5e has such good support on main portals for running initiative, etc. That makes CKing easier. Anything in works for CNC? Yeah. Chuck's starting back up. Oh, wait, no, you're talking VTTs, not Twitch. So Fantasy Grounds is releasing. We got the full release of the new Unity Castles and Crusades with Fantasy Grounds on January 1st, and then, or thereabouts. And then Shard has got its system. We'll be porting that over to Shard pretty soon, hopefully next year. And so we've got a lot of VTT coming out. I'm pretty stacked on that. Okay. There we go. I was reading this Skype and just yawned. Sorry about that. That was horribly rude. Steve thinks of GURPS before Pathfinder. Tells you my age, I suppose. I'm not a fan of spell and monster cards either. I do like having a stack of index cards with me so I can quickly have my most important monsters and their stats at my fingertips. Also, I do love face cards for NPCs. I miss those old Paizo face cards. I probably could do, the face cards would be kind of cool because then you've got art that would go with the NPC in question. That would be kind of cool. But I'm not that organized behind the screen. I'll start organized, but as the game unfolds, I start moving stuff around. I have to get into this book or that book. And I remember back in the AD&D days with the old AD&D monster cards, I had those decks, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever, how many decks it was, and it was a nightmare. I used them 3 weeks. We played about 2 to 3 times a week. I used them for about 3 weeks maybe, and that was it. I was done. I couldn't find anything. Stuff kept getting jumbled up, moved around, and I would use the card as a place marker in the DMG or the monster manual or whatever the hell, and then boom, I can't find the stupid card, and then 3 months later, there's the card. You know, it's one of those things. So I abandoned cards long ago. Thank you for the subscription, Time Lord's wife. And I'm glad we're getting some games headed your way. That's going to be a lot of fun. It does take some time to wrap your head around. I wasn't sure about CNC because of how Siege saves worked, but now I think I'll be converting the SW game to CNC next year. It really does take, you got to give it like 2 to 3 games and to kind of shake the dust off of the way you've been doing it. The main concept I have with CNC is asking my players, just tell me what you want to do. Only roll dice if there's a good chance of failure. That's a huge part of Castles and Crusades. We spent a little bit of time talking about that. If it doesn't require a check, you don't need a check, just do it. And that goes on both sides of the table. I found myself in the horrible habit of having them roll an attribute check for everything, and that's unnecessary. It's absolutely unnecessary. But it's a hard, it's Castles and Crusades is a much freer system, and it's a hard, and I'm not trying to sound like an ass, but it's hard to leap into that mindset, harder than you think to leap into that mindset. It's a little challenging because we're used to structure, rules, and order. And then when you get into CNC, you are the structure, rules, and order. You've got to kind of adjust. Now, once you've adjusted, you know, every gamer I've ever met, because their imagination's through the roof, every gamer I've ever met but one loves it because there's freedom with it. And who doesn't love freedom? And besides, Buffer, I haven't won anything in like 14 months. I like your TikTok Tales from the Table is awesome. Yeah, I gotta get more consistent with it. Is anyone here in chat or from TLG going to be at PAX Unplugged next week? I am not, sadly, but yeah, Ibonicus, thank you for the compliment. I just got to get back on top of that. Now we're all yawning, Steve. We're all yawning. Yeah, no, I hate yawning. TikTok's Tricks of the Trade is great also. I need to get all of that stuff going. And I had told myself when I started I wasn't going to spend more than 3 minutes on any TikTok. And then I started doing that, and it just derailed. It just derailed. As social media and myself always derail. I get really enthused with it for a few weeks, and then 700 things come up with TLG, or 1,000 things tabletop, and I gotta stop. And then 4 days later, I'm shit. I haven't checked, you know, Facebook or Twitter or TikTok or whatever. Thank you for joining us, Mastro Joe. Just dive in. We're really not talking about GM's Tricks of the Trade. We normally do, but as I explained earlier, my day kind of got knocked upside down, so there was no real topic that I could you know put together at the last minute. So we're just. I don't know what the hell we're talking about. We're just talking. So just throw anything into the stream you got. It starts off organized, no plan, survives first contact with the enemy. Absolutely. Was that Patton who said that? I think that was Patton who said that. I will be in Grand Library Friday and Saturday morning. Yes, it would be cool. Was that to me? I'm not sure that's to Greenland. Hey, Greenland, I hadn't seen you in a while. Joining the raffle. Excellent. My Amazing Adventure books arrived today. Thanks again. Excellent. Look, every fighter should be able to climb a tree. No check required. These are heroes. I hate when my CK makes me check for basic. And that's a perfect point because I climb trees and I'm not an adventuring hero. Climbing a tree is not that difficult. You just grab and you lift and you use your feet to propel yourself up into it. But it is an interesting mindset that you have to shift out of, wanting them to check for everything. And that's what you want to get away from. You don't want them to check for everything. You want them to be able to just feel comfortable in saying stuff. And then when it's the difficult things, they check for that mess. I will seek you out, Lord Gazumba, on Friday. I'm doing 2 paint. Oh, that was Lord Gazumba about PAX. Okay, there we go. Some people have said to me CNC is lethal, but I suspect the CKs are in the old habit of checking everything, not only the hard stuff, as you just said, or adjusting CLs heavily to point to success. Yeah, now there's a guide in the Player's Handbook and the CKG, a very loose guide on how to set your CLs, but if you set your CLs too high, you can mangle a character in a heartbeat. If your fighter's in a hurry, the check is correct. See, there you go. That's the perfect balance. If you're running at the tree like a madman and you leap into it, maybe you got to do a little bit of check. But again, it's up to the CK. The nice thing is, all of that's up to the CK. So however you want, there's no rules in the Castle Keeper's Guide or the Player's Handbook that tell you how to do that. There's a vague guideline on this is CLs for this. I think it's like CL 1 to 5 is easy, CL 6 to 10 is moderate. I don't know, something like that. So it's this broad guideline. As the game is yours, and you're going to want it to play it how you want to play it, and you don't have to justify it to anybody. You don't have to justify it to your players. You don't have to justify it to us. You don't have. There's no canon. The way you do this to the way you do that. It's your game. You bought the Player's Handbook. You own it. You play it. It's yours. Most of my players really like CNC. I've had one that quit who complained that saving throws are too difficult. The only one I've had quit was that he wanted more mechanics, and that was as much my kind of storytelling approach as it was his mechanical approach. He went to Pathfinder, I believe. Do you think the aliens from Area 51 would play CNC? Damn it, you know they would. You know they would. I've almost got it in my head. I'm going to write a history of the Roswell incident. I can't find one anywhere. It's either one group's trying to debunk it, or the other group's trying to defend it against the government's men in black, but no one is actually telling us what happened to whom when. And just you can even just leave the whole saucer out of it. Just assume that we don't know what that is. But the rancher found something. The archaeology team found something. Major Marcel found something. Where were they, when they were, how, whatever. It's just so terribly confusing. I think I'm going to start writing a book on it. How many campaigns are you running or playing in currently? I am running 2 right now. Playing in 1, running 2, and the one that I'm running in, we only play when I'm not running one of mine. Did that make sense? Our Thursday night game is either me in the campaign or me running the campaign, and then the Sunday game is me running the campaign. And I much more prefer running games than I do playing in them. I love playing in them, but I just don't do it often. And usually I die because I usually play a fighter and I won't stop attacking stuff. So, so I died this past over the Thanksgiving weekend. Davis, my brother, ran a game and I got killed. Do we have... I know we're doing something. I'm putting CNC in Rome a lot. Excellent. Mastro Dro, thank you for that. We need to get an Italian version of Castles and Crusades out. We talked to someone a few years ago, and they were going to do the quick starts, and I think they translated a couple of pages, and then we never heard back from them, so I'm not sure what happened there. Probably one of my select all delete emails dropped all of that stuff. Thanks for joining the chat, Megatron 1993. Glad you could join us. We're really not doing much GM tricks of the trade today, just jibber jabbering. I'm reading through my new CKG and getting some great ideas from it. That thing is chock full of stuff. Thanks, guys. See you next time. Thanks for joining us, Manager Dave. We'll see you next. I'll be around Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday of next week. And next week we'll have GM Tricks of the Trade number 99. You can make any game more or less mechanics. You can just strip them out, put them in. Honestly, that applies for any game. A check, test, AK, rolling dice shouldn't be for everything. That's very true, actually. I'm going to do a siege game surrounding an alien UFO conspiracy. Ideas rallying. Oh, that's very cool. I might have to join you for that one, Spark. If you're online for that, let me know. Hey, Steve, how much convincing would it take to get you to play a session of this thing I've been working on? It's all a time issue with me, King Kothar. I love gaming, but TLG consumes every day. I clock in at 7. I clock out about 5:30. So TLG is my mainstream, whatever, and then I got a game I'm running Thursday nights and then Sundays. So it's really just a time issue with me. If we can work time out, I'd love to jump in. That would be very cool. That'd be very, very cool. Clearly, we'd have to do it online. You didn't die when you played the dwarf. I didn't. That was amazing, Jay. It was amazing. I didn't get killed. What's up with that? I think I had enough buffers there to keep me from getting slaughtered. But I will say that my comrades on this past Friday, they kind of let me die. Me and Wilson and Wyatt all got killed. Those are my son and my nephew. I think a book of fiction RT Area 51 would be hilarious, where the 2 aliens are actually scientists and now going Reginald and Keith, and this is their story. I think just a book on the damn what happened would be great. Source book on alternate race heritages, like 6 different heritage variants on each race, more dwarves, not necessarily tied to Aaron. I'd love to do that. There were some books that came out, I'm sure you remember them, Omuk, back in the 80s that did that. They did dwarves, orcs, giants, and they were really good books. They were really helpful at the table with tons of ideas, and I'd love to do that. That's not on the docket at the moment. I know Davis started one on the orcs 15 years ago, but something like that would be very, very cool. He's just hammering into guilds and orders right now, and then he's going to tinker with arms and armor, and then by January I'm hoping that the NPC Almanac is wrapped up on my end, and he and I can sit down and start in on the Plains books. That's what is next. Yes, Master Joe, it'd be great. We need to make that happen. I fully expected to die in Steven's VGHC when I played my dwarf fighter, but I survived. So I only think there was one casualty in that. Steve works for fingers to the marrow, works his fingers to the marrow to the bone. It's for amateurs. Yeah, there you go. It's funny you should say that, Buffering, because we're doing something different with the character reference sheet. So I was experimenting on the binder, and the way we're packing. I have about I don't know, 7 or 9 paper cuts. Wilson and I are doing a lot of the packing right now because we're together. Wilson and I can do it extremely fast. I'm not knocking any of the other trolls, Todd or Davis or Tim, but with Wilson on the computer and me doing the packing, it is. We did 50 packages in 56 minutes, the two of us. So that's a company record. I was stoked on that, but I've got like a dozen paper cuts on my fingers. It's absolutely ridiculous. Half Giants for PCs. There you go. Amateur, that is. Get the bloodied edition, including Steve's blood in the product. We did years ago. Davis was running the cutter, and he cut the living shit out of 3 of his fingers on the blade, and he didn't notice it. So if you ever met my brother, he was an archaeologist for like 18 or 20 years. Forever. He was out in the dirt, and his fingers are like stubby little clubs, and he's cut 3 of them off over the course of the past 20 years, sewed them back on. So he doesn't feel a lot in his fingers. And I remember walking into the print shop. Mark was binding, Davis was on the cutter, and there was blood. I picked up a stack of books, and there's blood all along the book block. And I said, Davis, what the hell? You're bleeding on the books. And he's like, what? So he was just bleeding on books, book stack after book stack. We cut them in stacks of 3 or 5. And he had gotten probably about, 45 or 50 books. He may have gotten more. So if you have a book out there, I don't know, it would have been an adventure, don't know which one, with blood on it, that's probably Davis's blood. Well, I'll tell you, the only audience I haven't play tested with is Siege veterans. Maybe I'll post something on the Discord for a Saturday evening. That would be very cool. I fully expect to die in Steve's arms while we attempt to break into Area 51 to interview Reginald and Keith. No. Go on without me. Tell our story. Absolutely, tabletop. So I'll call you when I go to Area 51. It's on my docket. I want to go in the spring because obviously it's up in Utah and I don't want to get my truck stuck in the snow. But I think late spring or early summer, I'm going to head to Area 51. I'll give you a shout. You can join me. We can ride up together. Are there CNC books with his blood on them? Are they worth more? There's probably out there somewhere, but I don't know where. I can't remember which one it was. I'd have to ask Davis. He probably wouldn't remember either. But it was a long time gone. There you go. And I'm going to write a book about Roswell. It's driving me crazy. Somewhere they're cloning Davis using the blood sample now. Well, that'd be great because he's a great writer, and we get 2 of them. Then we'd get twice as much, 4 times as much. He writes about twice what I ask him to do. I wanted 160,000 words or some shit on the NPC Almanac. He turned over like 400,000. He's writing the Guilds and Orders book and expanding it. I wrote the first part. He's expanding it. God knows how long it's going to turn out to be. As a CK, I enjoyed Atherp's Natural Materials. My Druid or Illusionist players loved it. Do you think you could work out something similar for other classes? We're definitely... Chuck, are you listening? Chuck, put your earphones back on. We are definitely going to expand that book. Chuck is supposed to be working on that now, doing a little bit each day, because that's such a cool... The book itself is so very, very cool, and Chuck's bringing in his own kind of playing style and weaving that into the book. So I think Atherps has got a mountain of potential to be just one of those, to take a chunk of what Gary Gygax put into the World Builder and expand it into such a playable book at the table. So that that's definitely in the making. If we can come up, or if you can come up with other books that would be as helpful for the other classes, we would jump on them, because that's really where we are with Castles and Crusades. The Player's Handbook is obviously, it's done, and we're not changing it. We're not going to do new editions. We're 16 years into the publication of this book. It hasn't changed at all. But what we do want to do is provide more role-playing content, more gaming content that you can take and steal bits and chunks from. I don't ever expect anyone to take the Codex Nordica and just play a Nordic game. I expect them to take the Codex Nordica and yank out crap, put it in their game, and roll with it. And if you do take the whole Nordic thing, that's great. But all of this stuff is really, what we try to do is create content that we've always needed at our table, and there's so much of it that we've needed that's just not there, or came with such heavy-handed mechanics you can't use it, or you gotta fuck with it to get it, to clean it out, whatever. So that's what all of these things are. We're attempting to do. I think the one of our better books, Book of Familiars, Later Mystical Companions, it went too mechanical on it. I think that I would like to revisit that, write it myself, but de-mechanic it. Just take the mechanics out of the thing. Crusader's Companion has a ridiculous amount of interesting material for CNC. Free PDF at TLG. You should check it out if you haven't yet. Definitely check out the Crusader Companion. That's been around for a long time and been added to over the years. There's some great content in there. The Clone Game Master editions of TLG, but wait, there's more. There you go. Let's see. How about CNC on Roll20? So we've worked with Roll20 some. It's one of those platforms that keeps falling into that gray zone of we're going to get to it and we never do. Hopefully once our focus has been on Fantasy Grounds. We've had a long relationship with FG, so by January we should have that all released and a good release schedule for stuff coming out, so we can hammer that out and shift again to things like Roll20, Shard, and there's another, the Foundry I think is another one out there that we want to get into. So we really want to do that. But right now, for the next 4 weeks, it's wrapping up all these things: the Player's Handbook, Kickstarter, the Spellbook, the NPC Almanac, and Fantasy Grounds. And so that I want by January 1st it to be a new day at Trollord Games where we don't have all of this other stuff behind us. We're all charging forward with new stuff. Speaking of which, the screen should be here late next week, I think. There's also tons of great reading material in the Doomsday books and Crusader's Journal. There's a lot of stuff in there, without a doubt. And yeah, the Crusader, you can get them in digital format on our site, and the Doomsday, it's for somewhere to be downloaded. I don't know where. Somewhere up there. I don't have anything to do with the websites. All right, well, I think that's it. I have female players that really like options. My male players are more like have sword will go. Not the women. They want to know everything, and that's cool. And in the Castle Keeper's Guide, if you want to get into the advantages, there's a whole bunch of skill sets that allow you to kind of expand that way. I always try to encourage male and female players just to dive in, and expand their character role-playing and background-wise so that you can build on that, and then anything goes. Sky's the limit at that point. But it's a hard leap to get over. How about a mass combat book, Building Armies on It? We have that. You can find that in Fields of Battle. That's for sale now on the site. It used to come in a box set with a bunch of playing pieces and all that, but we scaled it down to just the book. It's a 48-page book by Casey Christopherson, I think, but you can definitely snatch that even now. All right, Tabletop. I'm going to reach out to you via TikTok. I want to talk to you a little bit about that. But we'll see you in 1,000 years when we go to Area 51. If you have not, please go to TikTok and follow Tabletop Santa over there. He's got a great account. He's got this great Santa Claus thing. I think I forgot to like it, but just definitely check out Tabletop over on TikTok. Sculptor Steve, I asked about a Merc book. Have you thought of a Mercenaries Guide? Provide some sample units, companies, and the rules for building your own Merc group. I have not, but that's a great idea. That would dovetail beautifully with the NPC Almanac. To actually have troops that you can access quickly, field on the battle, use for small skirmishes, whatever it is. I use a lot of that stuff in my game. In fact, not this previous game, but 2 games before that, they had 18 archers and 36 just kind of militia. But that would have been perfect. Absolutely, anytime, Tabletop. I love your content, and I don't know what's going on out here. There's a noise everywhere. There was a Field of Battle. I have the box edition. I find it great. Yeah, there's just the book now. All right, what are we doing? Are we raffling here, Chuck? Where yet? Game of whack-a-mole over here. All right, hires the Black Company. Very nice, very nice. All right, Chuck. Raffle in 5 minutes, 3 minutes, 2 minutes, something like that. Yeah, he needs a second. He's going to announce the winner for the raffle here in just a second. For those of you joining us, please give us a follow. If you're new to the store, if you're new to the site, give us a follow. Normally on today's show, we talk about GMing tricks of the trade. I didn't have it in me today, so we're going to be doing that next Thursday as we stumble into December. And join us on Monday for a special Twitch show where we're going to be talking about the release of the Castles and Crusades Player's Handbook. It will be officially for sale on Monday. And then on Tuesday, we'll do a Ask Me Anything on next Thursday, GM's Tricks of the Trade. And we'll actually do a GM's Tricks of the Trade, so we can actually talk about GMing. Let's see. So for Shinky7, I would absolutely love to. Shinky7, however you say that. Just reach out to us either here or at productsupport@troller.com. We've actually been trying to do a reach out recently. I would love to get on and do any kind of interview. Just give me a shout. We'll make it happen. I'll let Tim know that to reach out to you if we don't hear from you. I ran Keep on the Borderlands and used fields of battle for the players defending the Keep against the cultists and the horde of undead. The player had to travel to neighboring villages to recruit troops. That's very cool. We haven't set the time quite yet, Willie, but I think it's going to be in the early evening, probably 5 to 7. And then after that, I'm doing a Reddit AMA. So I'll be sitting in front of the computer for about, 1,000 hours. Man, why is everything 1,000 with me? I just don't get it. Pretty much a good chunk of Monday will be eaten up with this. Not eaten up, you know what I mean. You can come onto my stream and talk aliens for 2 hours. I'll do it. Just give me an invite, and I'll hop over. We really want to let people know, both more importantly about aliens, but also about the Player's Handbook as this new. It's really a new dawn for the Castles and Crusades, and I think that when people get their hands on this Player's Handbook, it's going to be something. 1,000 hours, 1,000 pages, 1,000 Dr. Peppers. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure what's up with me. And the number 1,000. Clearly some screw is loose somewhere. Or something. I don't know. All right, so we're pulling a winner now. So Chuck's doing something. All right, and I see the little whatever icon. Hey, look at that. So Chuck has done. Yeah. Chuck has the original. If you look at that Troll Lord Games post in the chat there, that middle icon is the original Troll Lord Games logo back in 2000. It's a triangle with a troll's head in it. It says Troll Lord Games all around it. Love that logo. Absolutely love it. I love what you did with the monk, giving them D12 hit points. It makes the monk feel more useful in the front lines and not like he needs to hide behind fighters and barbarians. That's one of my favorite things about, I'm not a huge fan of the monk, but one of the reasons I'm not is because AD&D really, I didn't think, treated the monk well with its no armor class and no hit points. It makes it borderline useless. You can't fight, you can't do anything really. So we made the monk a constitution class where you get a lot of hit points, and a lot of hit points is at least you can fight. Aliens and PHB, I think we can do that. I'll have to look at it next week's schedule. Sounds good. Steven, do you think that the online gaming will take precedence over the usual bunch of guys sitting at the same table? Pandemic seems to have shifted the RPG in the online session direction. I don't know. At first I said no, but now I'm seeing more and more people I'm seeing comments where they haven't ever gamed at tables, which is very odd to me. Very, very odd. But I think, honestly, at the end of the day, role-playing games are, it's as much getting together as the game. And you lose that over the camera. You can still keep it a little bit, with the jokes and the laughter and everything, but sitting around the table eating popcorn and whatnot, I doubt it. I think that, I don't want to say too much about the pandemic, but I think there's a shift going, and, vaccines are out, and I think people are going to start returning to the table. And once they're not going to easily leave it, regardless of whatever entity decides what. But I run 6 online games. Good Lord, Lando, that's a lot. That's a lot. And I could be wrong. Lando may be, what we're seeing in the future, that people are just going to be more comfortable staying at home. It's an interesting. It goes in with, we started this conversation with working from home as opposed to working in offices. The whole people beginning to shift away, and we're seeing it in games too. How deep it captures or how deep it becomes ingrained is, we'll see. My gut tells me no, but then again, I didn't think PDFs would ever be a thing. So be careful with listening to my gut when it comes to technology. For everyone who knows, I enjoy something of technology. I'm not sure what, but technology and me, we have this kind of love-hate relationship. It makes me extremely angry at times, though it's extremely useful at times. So I got too much free time. Nope, you're just gaming. I remember when I was in college, man. I had a full-time job, and we gamed 3 to 4 times a week. We gamed 2 to 3 easily times a week. We gamed all the time. We loved it. I would get off work at 11 o'clock, show up at my apartment, and there'd be a bunch of people at the apartment, and we'd game till 4 in the morning, 5 in the morning. He has 27 entries, so he's looking around for his 27-sided die. There you go. Did we get Retro Gamer has won? Congratulations, Retro Gamer. Very cool, very cool. Is that it for us, Chuck? Do we got another one, or are we doing a raid? What's going on? All right. Congratulations, Retro, for winning whatever we were offering. I don't know what it is. So, and everybody gets a free download of the Storyteller's Dictionary, which is a fantastic book. So snatch that code real quick. Thank you, Chuck. I didn't know you were doing that. All right, we're setting up a raid now, so that'll be coming on. So I'm going to do a raid here. I want to thank everybody for showing up. It's been another great chat. I absolutely love these afternoon chats. It's a nice way to cap my day, especially today that was extraordinarily chaotic and intrusive, I should say. And it wasn't intrusive troll-wise. It was non-troll stuff that was intruding on my space. It was causing me irritation. We'll leave it with that. We'll leave it with that. I was wondering about the subtle, or is it STD code? Barbara must have mistyped his inject code. There you go. But thank you all for joining us. Quaz, we will see you later. We'll be back on Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday, so please join us then. Have a good night, Green Loonton. We are rating now. Well, yes, we will be rating Eat to Surf now. Everybody have a great rest of your week and a very good weekend. Take it easy, y'all. Hitting the raid now button, ba-doom. There we go. I gotta turn this sucker off.